Right, we have Fred Agbedi. He's a member of the House Committee on Electoral Matters. He joins us now in the studio, and at our overflow studio is Cynthia Mbamalu, who is the Director of Programs at Yiaga Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with the Honorable Member, House Committee on Electoral Matters. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Fred Agbedi.
Thank you. Great pleasure to be here.
Great. Just like you heard in that report, there have been all manner of electoral reforms over the years. Every time there's an election cycle, there's that move, to reform the Electoral Act. And at the end of the day, we're back to where we started from, where the electoral process is still, has a huge question mark in terms of the process and, of course, the outcome. Let's start with the issues hindering the effectiveness and efficiency of our electoral process. What do you think is at the root of it?
Yeah, first, I think much of it is human character. For us as a people, we've not been able to agree to morality. We have not been able to agree to do what is right. And that is why you see that at every step of the way, you see people trying to compromise the rules, compromise regulations, compromise the law. And once the human character is not acting in conformity with the rules of the game, certainly the rules will not invent themselves and get the system right. So much of our problem is arising from the way we conduct ourselves as politicians, as INEC officials, as officials in government, as people who have the opportunity to play some ad hoc role anytime an election is prosecuted. So that is what brings us to the point of looking at the laws all the time. So in every election, people see shortcomings, people see loopholes, people see issues that need to further be tightened. And that is why there's always this constant agitation to review, to amend, to further espouse the electoral laws such that we will be able to get a free, fair, transparent electoral process. And that is what brings peace to a nation.
Okay, let me quickly get to Cynthia out there. Cynthia, if you can hear me. There have been calls here and there to unbundle INEC. Do you think too much is being placed at the feet of INEC? What are your recommendations on unbundling INEC?
Yes, I do believe that there's a lot of responsibilities placed on INEC, and the truth is, if you want an institution to function effectively and efficiently, then we must also appropriately accord them with mandates that they can deliver on efficiently. Currently, what we have is an INEC that has so much powers to do so much and yet not achieving the kinds of results we expect. So if we remember the Uwais Committee's report, it dates back, the recommendation dates back to that beautiful report that had called for the unbundling of INEC. And what are we looking out for? Let's take as simple as electoral offenses. We have an electoral process where there is a persisting culture of electoral impunity. And that is because when it comes to prosecuting electoral offenders, we do not see the kinds of results we want to see, because INEC on its own is busy with the conduct of elections. Nigeria is a country that has elections every year. Beyond the general elections, we have off-cycle elections. There are by-elections going on. And beyond the conduct of elections, we have INEC joined in petitions in court. Beyond that, INEC is registering voters. INEC is responsible for the regulation and registering of political parties. So you can imagine that INEC is doing so much. So when it comes to prosecuting offenders, the commission is failing in that aspect, because as it is now, INEC is still the body with the powers to prosecute electoral offenders. And so we can have beautiful laws criminalizing person-specific conduct as electoral offenses, but if people are not punished, then we cannot deter the occurrences of those kinds of actions. And that is why one of the call is for the establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission. This commission would have the responsibility to focus on issues around prosecuting offenders, not just those we get in the field, but even sponsors of offenders. Every elections, we have perpetrators of electoral violence. We have people manipulating the process. But if you think about the numbers of prosecution, people that have been successfully prosecuted or even jailed for their crimes, you can see that it's such a tiny number. So that is very important. The second is political party monitoring and regulation. Now, we have a system where the Electoral Commission is supposedly responsible for monitoring political parties. But as it is now, that role is not effectively delivered upon. And we need a separate body to be responsible for that. So that is another opportunity for the unbundling of INEC. And I think the third part is on voter registration. And the idea is, can we have NIMSI also take part of that particular role to reduce the burden on the Electoral Commission?
All right. So many recommendations coming from that town hall organized by Yiaga today. Mr. Fred Agbedi, I mean, as a House Committee member on the electoral matters, what do you say to some of the recommendations, especially the issue of unbundling of INEC? And the former INEC chairman also recommends, he actually says, look, there should be a total proscription of cross-carpeting by elected persons. And I'm wondering how that's going to play out, you know, side by side with the constitutionally guaranteed right to associate. What are your thoughts on some of these recommendations?
Well, I think they are all good enough to the extent that they are going to make the electoral law more responsive to the challenges at every election. It will be good and fine. But what I want to say quickly is that today's town hall has thrown up a number of issues. What the parliament does is, at some point, there's going to be a public hearing where stakeholders will come speak for or against all these issues. And then the committee will basket them. If majority speaks for all this, yes, this is the desire of Nigerians. If majority is opposed to it, the parliament will not run with the ones that majority is opposed to. The committee will collate and then further submit their report to the larger house for consideration. The results that comes out of it is the voting at plenary, which, you know, decides whether a particular amendment is good enough to go or not. You know, and that is where every member of the house will play his or her role. The arguments about the issues of unbundling, yes, it's been on the table. The issues about electoral offences commission, you know, and all that. Nigerians argue for and against. Nigerians also argue that, yes, there is the Nigeria police. They arrest electoral offenders. The same Nigeria police, if at the point of election, a presiding officer or an INEC person says, this is wrong, take this action, Nigeria police will tell you, my friend, you won't order me to do this. I don't take directives from you. These are the issues, you know. And so, if at the end of the day, you cannot arrest an electoral offender and prosecute him, yes, the present laws has given responsibility to INEC to handle that, because the Nigerian police had refused to handle that. The duty of the Nigerian police is to ensure that they implement law and order and then bring to justice whoever that has fouled the law.
But is the Nigerian police itself not hampered? Are they not hamstrung?
These are the
hands
issues.
Not tied in a way that they're
these
not
are
able
also
to...
the issues. Because take, for example, today in the town hall, the police representative was saying that if talks or whatever kind of people comes to attack people in a voting unit, how many policemen, how armed are we to be able to challenge them, to be able to overpower them? Where the police on ground is not well kitted to resist that attack, of course there's nothing they can do about it. So there is a problem. So even if you put the commission today to try electoral offenders and the police is unable to arrest those people, what will the electoral commission, what will the commission be prosecuting? Nothing. It is only when they are arrested that the commission can prosecute. And if the police is not well equipped, if the police is not having the numbers to carry out that assignment, then you are still back to square one. You see, and that is why most of the times when these issues about the commission comes on the floor, you see those, even at public hearings, you see a number of people opposing it because they look at it as another drain pipe that is not going to bring any positive result. Others say, no, this is the right way to go, and it should be. And for Parliament, we listen to the public. And then when you go to the voting point, individual legislators have their own buy-in the way they want it.
Absolutely. Now, we'll come back to you, Mr. Fred Agbedi. Let me quickly get to Cynthia. Cynthia, it appears that one of the challenges that INEC is facing, looking at the last elections, the off-cycle elections, one of the challenges is having to upload results, election results, from the BVAS to the IREV in real time. So it's beginning to look like INEC is torn between two options, whether to do it manually or electronically. How can we address this using legislative instruments?
Yeah, I think there is an opportunity in this reform process or reform cycle to ensure that we review the sections in the Electoral Act that provides for electronic transmission of results. You know, the current act gives INEC the discretion to determine the mode of transmission. However, it does provide specific sections that requires that results and data of accredited voters are transmitted directly from the polling unit. However, one of the things we want to see in this reform process is that there's better harmonization within the law that prescribes that these two modes, both the manual and the electronic, are complementary and must go side by side. Because one of the things we've seen is the act gives INEC the discretion, and then the guidelines specify the process for electronic, for the use of the BVAS to upload results on the INEC result viewing portal, IREV. However, one of the things we've learned from this election is if we don't have it in the law, it then gives the commission the leeway to act as it pleases, especially the personnel in the field who are those administering the election. So one of the things we want to see is that the Act is amended to clearly state that for when it comes to results collation, the electronic and the manual process must go hand in hand and they complement each other. And so that is one of the reforms. We've also seen some gaps in some sections where references is made to one section and you don't see the follow-up provisions. And so the idea is that for this reform cycle, we need to close those gaps, but we need that clarity so that it's not just left at the whims and caprices of INEC officials in the field.
Very quickly, Fred Agbedi, 30 seconds before we wrap on this. What will your committee be doing to address some of these concerns raised on the Electoral Act?
Yeah, I think what the committee is doing is first to collate what Nigerians want, and finally have a public hearing. In that public hearing, we are going to assess who are for each of these amendments that are being proposed, whether a greater number of Nigerian stakeholders want it, passed or not. And then we submit the report to Parliament. But like I said today at the town hall, Nigerians need to stand up. Yes, we know that there are gaps. The gaps can only be amended at the floor of the National Assembly, both in the House of Reps and the Senate. And the way we stood in the previous assembly to achieve this level that we achieved, Nigerians need to take a step more further, to ensure that we're able to deal with these gaps that exist so that we can have a more transparent electoral process.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Agbedi, member, House Committee on Electoral Matters. We also thank you from our offsite studio, Cynthia Mbamalu, Programs Director, Yiaga Africa. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Newsnight.